Let's take a closer look at the AG600. This is the third giant aircraft developed by China. The same as C919, for the second C919 debut, we also made exclusive coverage. So also brought you the very closer look on the C919, and also this time we also have this opportunity to take a closer look at AG600. And you can select your favorite social media platform to ask questions to us. We will try to answer them, or we can also invite the crew team member to answer your question. There's a live streaming on the site of debut of AG600, and because of the security issue, so we only can make you this closer look. I hope we have other opportunities. We can on board with the group member and have a closer look inside of our AG600. If you have any questions, please leave us a message or ask your questions via your favorite social media platform. Although I'm holding a stabilizer with me, but I think still can feel that the footage is shaking, and we have the team here is checking for the electricity. You're now watching a live streaming. We take you the live footage of AG600 maiden flight preparation. And we bring you a closer look at the giant aircraft AG600. And let's also follow the team here to see the final check. Right now, the team are making the final check to guarantee the AG600 is ready. is making the final check in every details. Hello, we're making a live streaming, and what is your job and responsibility? We're checking the whole flashage, and I think we already done the checking. So we are checking the whole look of the fuselage. So right now you are seeing is the team of maintenance. The flying crew is not arrived yet. So when the flying crew arrived, they will also make another round of checking. And then we will have our first flight of AG600. There is a helicopter arrived here. I don't know what is the role of this helicopter or who is on board. Let me check with the team. But the helicopter, what is for the purpose? That helicopter is for the maritime rescue, search and rescue. So it will may also fly with AG600. Yes, it's a accompanying flight. We just saw a helicopter flying away. That's another maritime research and rescue purpose. And you can see another one that's also for the accompanying flight. We'll also have the onboard broadcasting for you later. Maintenance team almost done their final checking. And then the flight crew will arrive here, and they will also make another final round check before the maiden flight of AG600. And we will also have the opportunity to bring exclusive coverage for you from the inside of AG600. Stay tuned.
几个播出平台上啊，有我们的网友提出了问题，当然这些问题呢，我能解答的，我会实时为我们的网友解答。当然我解答不了的，在稍后我们采访机组的时候，我们也会为我们的网友对提出的问题进行一一解答。 好的，各位央视新闻的网友，大家好！现在正在通过央视新闻移动网、央视新闻客户端、央视新闻官方微博和央视新闻的今日头条号、百度百家号为您直播我们 AG600的首飞。现在呢，我在的位置是我们的 AG600的停机坪。现在我们的工作人员呢正在进行最后的检查。现在我们的工作人员是对前轮进行一个细致的检查，我们也近距离看一下。好的。我们的 AG600大飞机呢是大型灭火以及水上救援、水陆两栖的一个飞机。AG600的研制呢是从2009年开始立项，正式启动了这个项目的研制。从2009年开始启动这个项目到2016年的时候，我们的 AG600001架机呢正式在珠海，也就是现在我们所在的这个位置正式总装下线。今天呢将进行它的首飞。好的，刚才我看到我们的有网友问啊，我们的陆上首飞之后会不会还有海上的首飞？是的，今天呢它主要进行的是我们的陆上首飞，而在稍后呢我们的陆上首飞之后也会进行相继的水上的首飞以及其他的一些性能啊以及其他的测试。也相信我们的 AG600在不久之后将投入正式的使用。好的，各位央视新闻的网友，大家好！我现在所在的位置是广东珠海机场。现在我面前的这架飞机叫做 AG600，是大型的水陆两栖的一个救援飞机。今天呢，它要进行首次的飞行。现在呢，我们的另外一路记者在我们的AG600的伴飞飞机上，因为在今天的AG600首飞的时候呢，我们会有一架伴飞飞机跟随着我们的AG600进行首飞。在我的不远处，大家能够看到，就是我们的 AG600的伴飞飞机。稍后呢，我们的另外一路记者也将进行伴飞飞机的一个直播探访。我们的另外一记者也记录 AG600的飞行。在我们的稍后直播中呢 ，AG600首飞的过程中，我们也将有一路央视新闻的独家画面在空中全程实时的记录 AG600。
We bring you live coverage of first flight of AG600.
We can already see AG600 in our view. Later, our reporters will also board the plane.
的，因为现场我们的在机场啊比较的空旷，可能我们的镜头不太稳，也请各位网友
I'm sorry
谅解。
for the footage, which is
好的，我们
always
的机组成
shaking.
员呢将在9点钟左右
Around 9
到达我们
o'clock,
的停机坪进行机前的检查以
a
及
final
登机。
check will be undertaken, and the crew team will board the
这
plane.
样我们看看我们的另外一路记
We
者
can-
张雷有没有做好准备进行AG600
You can ask whether our colleague Zhang Lei is ready
半飞飞机的探访。
for the coverage later. Okay, I see that on the message board, many netizens are very interested in AG600 and CG919. Actually, C919, AG600, and Y20 are the three large aircrafts that China designs. Through the camera, we can also see that AG600 also has a hull fuselage. And on the upper part, it looks like an airplane. AG600 is capable of taking off over water and on land. And it can take off over water. Okay, I see that our colleagues that will cover the accompanying flight are also ready. We will direct the camera toward the accompanying plane. And it will take off before the flight of AG600. Dear netizens and viewers, good morning. We are at the Zhuhai airport and will bring you the coverage of the maiden flight of AG600. On my right hand, I think you must have seen it already. That is the hero of today, AG600. It's a name of the type of plane. It's the largest amphibious plane being designed on the world, and China has the intellectual property rights. Today, AG600 will have its maiden flight to test its performance, the propellers, the engines, and different gestures during its flight in the air. As a reporter today, I will give you a totally different perspective. Okay, here's a smaller plane, which is the accompanying plane. To cover the flight of AG600 in a more perfect manner, we also have an escort plane. This plane was produced in the 1980s. Its name is Y20. It's not a large. It's Y12. It's not a very large plane. So now you can see it's not that tall. So what are its features? Why do we choose Y12 as the escort plane? Let me walk you through the details. We see that it has the same turbine engine as AG600, which means it has the blades on the engine. It may work not as fast as the jet-style engines. We can see that the two planes, their speed will be maintained at almost the same level, and the escort plane can catch up with AG600 so that during the whole flight we can keep on track. We can see that the two pilots are already on board to have preparations later at around 8:50. The escort plane will start operating, and in 15 minutes it will take off from this runway before AG600 and wait for AG600 in the air. I will be covering the whole story on board Y12. And to deliver beautiful footage of AG600, I will give you another detail. So the head of Y12, we can see that the two pilots are getting ready. How to give you the best footage of the maiden flight? We can have a look here. On the lower part of this plane, we have a camera here. Actually, two cameras are loaded. One is infrared camera, another is a visible light camera. And it will cover the maiden flight of AG600 in the air in a real-time manner. AG600 is having the final check before the maiden flight. We are at the Zhuhai airport. The Zhuhai Jinwan airport. This morning we'll be covering the whole story. The airport today has a lot of work underway, so our signal is not that good. My apologies. Just now I've told you that today we'll be onboarding the escort plane. So, what is it like inside Y12? The signal is better now? Okay, now I'll take you to the inside of the Y12 to see whether there's some high-tech components there. Actually, Y12 is a very small one. This is a cockpit of the escort plane. Okay, the two staff will be with us the whole time. They will help us cover the story of AG600. And they will be holding the joystick or the controller. So this is a controller platform. So on the control board there will be two signals. From the two cameras, as I mentioned earlier, and our signal will go back to the ground. Now in the middle of the board we can see a controller or a control stick. Now we can see that the two pilots are having the final preparatory work before flight. They're still getting ready for the flight. Inside Y12, inside the cabin, we don't have too much space. So I think I'll leave the stuff free for the final preparatory work. Now we are outside of the cabin. Still many workers on the ground are getting ready for the maiden flight. They're still busy preparing, so we'll try not to interrupt them. The plane has very stable performance characteristics, and it has already got the license for flight. The airworthiness certificate. The signal's back. Just now, the pilots are carrying out checks on the tail of the plane. Later, in the accompanying flight, we will keep a safe distance from AG600 since the escort plane is smaller. And the distance will be around 800 to 1,000 meters. Is the signal better?
Now we are standing at the tail of the escort plane. Earlier, I told the captain, he told me the Y-12 is much smaller than AG600. We need to be really careful. We need to keep a very safe distance between the Y-12 to AG600. So the distance will be around 800 to 1,500 meters. So 800 around. So we will keep this safety distance. So let's say the left-hand side is AG600 flying in the air, and Y-12 will be right or at the left, fly a little bit higher than AG600. Why we need to have this company aircraft? Because this is the first flight of AG600, so we need to take a closer look at whether the AG600 is flying in the normal, stable way, or any shaking, any technical issues, or mechanical concerns. This is a very meaningful maiden flight, and we also need to consider all the factors during the flight. And the escort aircraft or airplane should fly at the back of the AG600. Will also not really fly right after. So we will keep our Y-12 on the left-hand side or right-hand side of AG600. So we consider the size of Y-12. So we need to make sure that both flights are keeping in a safety distance. And the Y-12 will take off 20 minutes earlier than AG600, and we will wait for AG600 up in the air. And when the AG600 is taking off, we will accompany the AG600 fly higher. Because we're the smaller ones, we cannot really catch up AG600. So we have to take off early in order to catch up with AG600. And after AG600 landed, we will also be wait up in the air for around 10 minutes, make sure AG600 landed safely, and then the Y-12 will land it. Although the size of the accompany flight is much smaller, but we have very much rich experience. The captain of a Y-12 said he was 58 years old. He says it's a very good opportunity for younger generation of pilots. This is a very great opportunity for them to drive this great aircraft up to the air. And we can see the AG600 actually is the accumulated wisdom and talent of a previous generation of aircraft pilots and engineers. Talking about the weather here, wind is really strong today. Although the air is quite clean, but I think the wind speed is much stronger than 2 days before. We made some testing flights 2 days ago, and the wind was okay, but today the wind is really strong. So that also brings additional difficulty to our smaller size escort airplane. And I hope the wind can be a little bit smaller to create an enabling environment for the both aircraft. Now it comes to 8. 49 a.m. in the morning. The accompanying flight will get ready and start to take off, and we'll wait for the AG600 up in the air. We are bringing you live coverage of the first flight of AG600. You can see our live broadcasting on your favorite social media platform. And you also can see the news coverage on TV as well. You can see the wind is so strong. I really cannot stay stable on my foot. And I hope everything goes well, a full success. And the staff told me I should be on board because the Y-12 is getting ready to taking off first. Okay, wish we have a great flight, and stay tuned with us. We'll bring you the exclusive coverage. The original plan is we should be heading to the runway at 8:50, but right now the wind is becoming stronger even, so we should be wait here, and we will wait here and waiting for the wind is smaller, and we will head to the runway. We will hear to the final call. You're watching now is the AG600, and the flight crew just arrived here. So our other correspondent is at AG600. I will let Zhuhai, our correspondent, to bring you the live streaming. You are now watching the live streaming
央视新闻今日头条号和央视新闻的百度百家号为大家直播
Our first flight of AG600. Right now you are seeing the flight crew here for the security check, and then they will get on board of AG600. And then this AG600 will be conducted a final round check by our captains. Let me bring you a closer look on the final checking conducted by the flight crew. The captain is also checking all the details. It's Mr. Zhao Sheng. Is the captain of AG600. The wind is so strong here, so the camera is not quite stable. The flight crew is now making the final round of checking, so they go around the whole AG600 for the final check before the first flight. Right now, all the flight crew members are on board. And this one is a mechanician. The technical expert is also making the final check. I think from the noise, you can tell the engine is start. The engine's starting. That should be our accompanying flight. Considering the safety of the first flight of AG600, we cannot have the opportunity to be on board to bring you the coverage from inside of AG600. You can see the maintenance team getting off the flight. I think everything is ready inside, and the cabin door will soon be closed. Our mechanician, Mr. Wei Peng, also called the team back. I think they also have other things on their checklist to be finished.
Okay, so since we couldn't get inside the cabin, we'll be standing on the ramp to have a look at the inside of AG600 to see what it looks like inside. And it's an exclusive coverage from CCTV. I think we are really lucky today, but due to safety concerns, we cannot walk inside of the cabin, so we'll be just giving you the footage from the ramp. But still, I think the netizens are lucky enough to know what it looks like inside the cabin of AG600. The engine has already started, so later maybe we'll suffer a little. It's really a pity that we couldn't fly with AG600 and sit inside of the cabin, but we already give you the exclusive coverage of the cabin of AG600. The plane has got ready, and it will be having the final check and final preparations before the maiden flight. And the crew members are already on board the plane. Okay, dear viewers and netizens of CCTV, now we are broadcasting through mobile applications, Weibo accounts, and our accounts on Baidu and today's headlines. We are broadcasting the maiden flight of AG600, which is a large amphibious aircraft designed by China, together with C919 and Y20. They are called the three large aircrafts of China. The commander of this maiden flight is Mr. Zhao Peng. We had an interview with him. During the interview, we get to know that Russia and Japan and China are capable of designing such large amphibious aircrafts. The maiden flight of AG600 will also bring brand new experience to China's aviation industry. Now we can see that on the lower part of AG600, it's a hull. We asked about the reason. That is because it is an amphibious aircraft. The design is to facilitate takeoff over water and on land. The captain also worked on the maiden flight of other civil airplanes. And he told us that it's very different for the maiden flight of an amphibious aircraft, but he's very confident, and we wish him success. Another team of reporters is also around the runway to cover the maiden flight of AG600. They will broadcast live what it is like on the runway. This maiden flight will be running for around 1 hour. It's a first comprehensive test in real conditions for our aircraft. Through the camera, we can see that the air escort plane of AG600 is already taxiing toward the runway. It will take off before the flight of AG600 and wait for AG600 up in the air. And it will provide the exclusive footage up in the air. So please stay tuned. My colleague Wu Jie is ready for the broadcast. Later, he will talk about what it is like on the runway. So let me hand the floor over to Wu Jie. Okay, dear friends. Good morning. We are at Zhuhai, Jinwan Airport of Guangdong Province. I'm at the runway. In a moment, AG600 will accomplish its maiden flight from here. Just now, my colleague introduced a lot about AG600. Now, I'll try to give you another perspective. I'm comparatively more distant from AG600. This is Zhuhai Jinwan Airport, a very busy airport. Okay, let's zoom in. From the camera, we can see a blue-white plane, which is the hero of today's coverage, the amphibious aircraft AG600. We can see that the size is almost comparable to Boeing 737. It has very strong powers. Today, it will be a 1-hour flight. The takeoff time is 9:30, from 9:30 to 9:40, and we're still waiting. I've spent over 1 hour here, and I think Jinwan Airport is really a busy airport. We see takeoffs and landings constantly. And now we have a window before any takeoff and landing to accomplish the maiden flight of AG600. From the footage, we can see that the weather in Zhuhai is very good. The sky is clear. It's a little bit foggy, but the influence is limited. We have a weathercock here. If it is in full bloom, then it means that the wind is very strong. Okay, another plane is taking off. A really busy airport. Well, I chat with the staff workers here. They told me that today the Jinwan Airport will handle over 9 million travelers. That is an accumulative number. AG600 is ready for the maiden flight now. It will start the engines and approach the runway. A highlight today is that we also have an escort plane to shoot the footage in the air. We can see from the runway that the escort plane is at the starting point of the runway. On the escort plane, we have cameras to catch the flighting attitude of AG600, and we'll also be giving you that signal. My colleagues will also be onboarding the escort plane. Okay, the engine is operating now. That is the beginning of today's maiden flight. This is Y12. It's not a large plane. It can host 12 passengers. And today it has our corresponding team and also the mechanician team of AG600. Escort plane has already taken off.
Right now you can see all the reporters, correspondents are here waiting for AG600, and they also attach great importance to the maiden flight of AG600. For CGTN, we'll also bring you the live coverage of the first flight of AG600. And I can tell you that I can hear the sound of the engine. I believe the engine is starting, and it also marks that the AG600 is right now counting the clock for the first flight. We can see the engine is starting of AG600. My colleague Zhuhai will bring you the coverage. You are now watching the live streaming on the social media platform. The first flight of AG600. Now the AG600 is already taxiing to the runway. And the AG600 is ready. And we cannot enter into the runway. And the door is also started to close. So we will also later on bring you the coverage from the ceremony venue. So right now we are at the parking apron, and the door from the parking apron to taxiway is started to close. And let me show you the route of AG600. Just now the AG600 was parked here, this place. And now the AG600 is already taxiing to the runway and is waiting for the final call for takeoff. You are now watching the live streaming of maiden flight of AG600, where your favorite social media platform. And this is China's first amphibious aircraft. Whether you can see it or not, I think AG600 is ready and waiting for the final call of takeoff. The AG600 is now on the runway, waiting for takeoff. Our other correspondent will bring you the live coverage at the ceremony venue. And we are also waiting for the ready to go by the flight crew from AG600, and then we will also hear the final call from the control center. I think AG600 is ready, and we are right now waiting for the final call for takeoff. And at today's live streaming, you will see the live footage of AG600 up in the air. We have correspondent team. As another flight will show you the live coverage of AG600 flying up in the air. And if you have any questions or anything you would like to know, please leave a message to us at the social media platform. I will answer all of them later. I think AG600 is ready. And we will bring you live coverage and also exclusive footage bring to you about the first flight of AG600.
Just now, the 4 engines of AG600 have started, and the aircraft is at the end of the runway. It's also the normal time when flights take off and land here. So from afar, we can see that the lights on the wings are on now. The wind is very strong, but we can still hear the noise of the 4 engines. It's the largest amphibious aircraft being designed on the world. It's basically the size of a Boeing 737, but it has a very special design, which means it can take off both over water and on land. It can play a very important role in ocean rescue and firefighting. We've just learned that the takeoff time will be from 9:30 to 9:40, and it will fly for 1 hour. So what will we be doing then? The crew team told us that for a maiden flight, they need to test different factors, like whether it's stable enough, whether the engines are powerful enough. All those factors need to be tested in the first flight. And for AG600, there is another highlight today. So it will also simulate the approaching process of a plane at the end of the maiden flight. For a flight that has a wingspan of around 40 meters, when it tries to approach the airport at a 500 meters height, that will be very impressive. So several minutes ago, the escort plane has already taken off for the task. And the escort plane will also be feeding us the footage on the flying attitude of AG600. So we'll be able to see how AG600 looks like up in the air. A very important factor for a maiden flight is weather. We can see that the weather of Zhuhai today is very good, a little bit foggy, but still suitable for a maiden flight. The only pity is that the wind is very strong. Today, the wind is not providing a very favorable environment, because usually airplanes need to fly against the wind. But still, I believe that AG600 will have a very successful maiden flight because we have very experienced crew teams. AG600 is getting ready at the end of the runway. After having clearance, it will take off. And we'll be covering the whole process. So thank you, Wu Jie. Thank you for bringing back the footage from the scene of AG600's maiden flight. So let's take a look at the crew team. Our reporters had an exclusive interview with the captain, Mr. Zhao Sheng. He's an experienced captain with over 7,000 hours of flight. He has very rich experience. He used to take part in the maiden flight of A2J21, and he noted that the maiden flight for an amphibious plane is quite different. From the outlook, we can see that it has strong resistance. from the technology side, it's very demanding for us. It can take off over water and on land. Half of the aircraft is like a ship, and another half is like a plane. So our crew teams have been doing a lot of preparatory work. It has several taxi tests. In November, we had a high-speed taxiing tests to achieve an ideal status of AG600. During the taxi tests, we also explored the controllability of AG600 from different angles. Generally speaking, it's very suitable for the maiden flight. The maiden flight for AG600 has just been announced. We are at the scene of AG600's maiden flight. Mr. Sun Yueping, the vice chief designer of AG600, will be with us during the story coverage. Now the preparatory work has been accomplished. After getting clearance, it can take off. And we also have the certificate to go up in the air. Now we have footage from the escort plane, and our colleague, Mr. Zhang, will be covering the story from the escort plane. So this is the footage from the cabin of AG600. We can see the 3 pilots are in the cockpit. On the left is the chief pilot, Mr. Zhao Sheng, and at the hind is the mechanician, Mr. Zhao Sheng. The crew team has 4 members. We have 2 pilots, 1 mechanician, and 1 supervisor. The engines are running. Actually, the engines have been running for a while because they need to get prepared for the flight. Up to now, it hasn't received the instruction to take off, so it is still getting ready. So for this maiden flight of AG600, what's the significance? It means that AG600 is in the stage of flight tests. Is a milestone and also a test for AG600's performance and functions. So all participants are attaching great importance to the maiden flight. All the data today will be transferred to the ground and be handled later. So what's the height and time of the maiden flight? Today, the maximum height will be 3,000 meters. And the time duration is calculated from the start of engines to the close of engines. That is 18 minutes. And it's the longest duration for maiden flights. AG600 is called one largest amphibious aircraft on the Earth. It's mainly used for firefighting and ocean rescue. And it is a civil airplane. So compared with Y-20, C919, together these 3 are called the trio. Yeah, for the 3 aircrafts, they have their respective characteristics. C919 is developed with advanced technologies. Okay, AG600 has taken off It is taxiing. Accelerating. Okay. With a very short distance, it is already up in the air. So very good performance. The distance for lifting the rails are really short. It's really short, so it means the plane has very good performance. So the minute when AG600 takes off, people are very excited on site. It will fly around the airport. So this is how we test AG600's performance and its maneuverability. People are flying the flags. Zhuhai has very good weather today. And just like our mood. Now we are having the footage from the escort plane. And next, my colleague Zhang Lei will be taking over. I'm aboard the escort plane Y12. We are climbing. From the window, we can see that we are heading towards the projected airspace, and we are 1 kilometer from AG600. We can see that AG600 is also climbing up. In the maiden flight, AG600 will be moving up and down, left, right, and carrying out different flying tasks. So during the flight, it will test a series of tests on the performance of the plane. From the camera, we can see that we are having AG600 in the camera. That is a cockpit of AG600. In the camera, we can see AG600. It is heading toward the airspace projected. It is flying at a very stable altitude at a height of 1.5 kilometers. The speed is also as scheduled. The speed is 240 kilometers per hour. It is flying on the right of the escort plane. We can see the whole process of the maiden flight. In this time, we use the nacelle to load satellite signals. Now the footage comes back from the nacelle camera. Besides, we also have visible light camera and infrared cameras to focus on AG600. Those equipments help us ensure that the footage of AG600 is in the camera, and all the technical factors are very good. We are approaching AG600 because according to the plan, we should be following AG600 at a distance of around 2 kilometers. That is the maximum range. The nearest range or distance is 800 meters. And we'll be accompanying AG600 on its right and left. But we'll be flying in the rear of AG600.
We are now climbing up to a higher altitude. You are now watching the footage that's from the inside of AG600. The Captain, Mr. Zhao Sheng, the co-flight Chen Ming, mechanic Chen Ming, and they're also an observer. I think the signal is not stable because it's flying up in the air. For your apologies, and thank you for our correspondent. For AG600, the maiden flight is like the first walk of the small baby. In order to make sure everything goes well, and actually we made so many different plans. Based on the plan, the first maiden flight will be around 1 hour, as Captain Zhao Sheng introduced. So this is a full test about the airplane's AG600 performance in the real situation. We want to test the very fundamental performance and functions. So we will test first. After it's up in the air, we will see all the systems are working accordingly as planned, and we also look at whether the airplane is stable. Also, the performance is going well, all the functions are working, and we'll also have a zone that's 40 times 60, and the flight height is around 3,000 kilometers. So we are fully prepared, and we will conduct a simulation of landing. So we will have the heading to the ground, but not landing very close to the ground. That's the simulation of landing. So we will look at when it's really landed, what kind of the features it will have, and want to make sure and manage the landing of AG600. That's why we conduct the simulation. And because it's also the amphibious aircraft, so it's based on our own opportunities and experience to explore the performance of AG600.
友，上午好！我们现在是央视新闻移动网、央视新闻新浪微博、央视新闻客户端、今日头条。我们正在直播的是世界在研的最大水陆两栖飞机 AG600首飞的整个的全过程。现在我们画面当中看到的就是 AG600的伴飞飞机运12拍摄到的空中的 AG600飞行的画面。这应该也是我们国内第一次这么全程的来直播报道。这样的大型客机的首飞。
This is the first full coverage of such a maiden flight of large aircrafts. Together with me is Deputy Chief Architect for AG600. Some questions for you. So, what's the difference between AG600 and C919 and Y20? They three are called the trio of aircrafts. What are their differences? Y20 is a special purpose, that is military purpose aircraft. While C919 is for civil aviation, for passenger transport. It's also designed and produced by China. But C919 has integrated all the advanced elements of China and countries around the world. We had some joint design and joint production efforts, while AG600 is a pure Chinese product. Okay, from the footage we can see the cockpit of AG600. This time the crew team is made up of 4 persons: Mr. Zhao Sheng, Mr. Chen Min, the 2 captains, Mr. Wei Peng, the mechanician, and also an observer. With the observer is observing all the specifications in front of the control board. So we are having a lot of numbers in the frame. 358 is the number for the flight plan. And on this side is current time. It's a first maiden flight coverage like this one. I mean a cockpit coverage. It's very rare that we have coverage from an accompanying flight. Netizens have posed a question. So this is the first on-land maiden flight, but it's an amphibious aircraft. So when will it be the above-water maiden flight? AG600 is integrated and produced in Guangdong province, but there isn't a waterside airport in this province. So the over-water maiden flight is scheduled for next year in Hubei province. Well, the specific time depends, because after this maiden flight, we'll still have a lot of other tests and in the air experiments. A netizen asked a question about the nacelle. Is it the most advanced in China? I'm not sure whether the question is about the observing nacelle on Y12 or the component on AG600. For nacelle-like components on the AG600, actually it's not a nacelle, but a buoy. So is the engine domestically produced? Yeah, the engine has acquired the airworthiness certificate. It's produced by China, yes. Okay, a detail. Netizens are really passionate about AG600. So about the escort plane, why is the landing gear not retrieved? Because it's a maiden flight, so there might be some emergencies. To ensure the safety, for 101 and 102, the landing gears were also not retrieved. Actually, for all the maiden flights, the landing gears are not retracted. This is footage from the cockpit of AG600. This is for the first time that we can have such a long duration footage from the cockpit of the aircraft. And we have a whole process coverage from the cockpit of AG600 and also Y12, the accompanying plane. My colleague Zhang Lei is on the escort plane. They are still catching up with AG600 because it is flying at a very fast speed. Yes, the speed is faster for AG600. Okay, back to the scene at the launching ceremony. When the AG600 took off, people were all waving the flags. We still have two key items to be accomplished. First, a simulation of the approaching process and also simulation of landing. So how about the escort plane? It is Y12, produced in Harbin. It's a civil airplane. It has acquired certificates from civil aviation authorities, so it could carry passengers also.
Okay, based on our plane time schedule, so when the AG600 will be landed at the Zhuhai airport, should be scheduled at 10:46 to 48 a.m. So will be scheduled landing time will be 10:46 to 10:48 a.m. We're landing at the Zhuhai airport.
9点38分 AG600 成功起飞，要在规定的高度飞行1
The
个小时。
first flight, maiden flight, the AG600 took off successfully at 9:39, and right now, AG600 is preparing for landing. And we will go through the routine process for landing, and with a very slow speed and flying across the airport. For the company flight and the AG600 are preparing for landing. They are heading back to the airport. The distance between the two flights is around 1 kilometer. AG600 just now finished a series of flight altitude, flying to the left, to the right, up and down. So we're testing the also the simulation of landing, make sure all the functions are working perfectly. This is the footage from the company flight. You can see the AG600 flying stably. And the performance is stable, and also you can see from the footage, the flight attitude is also very good. Everything, the first flight, maiden flight till now, are very successful. Everything moves very smoothly. From our camera, and also we can tell from the picture, the landing gear, the engines, the tail, the wings, everything just very stable, operated. We are now at the escort plane, and we are preparing for landing. And this is also a key part of the first flight of AG600. The period of the first flight is around 1 hour, and we wish a full success of maiden flight, especially for the landing part. AG600 is at the left front of the company flight. The flight altitude is very stable, and the 939 meters away from our escort flight. And for this time, we use the cutting-edge technology to taking the live footage of AG600. And we have a photoelectric nacelle, so that this nacelle can help us to get the live footage of AG600, and we also can transmit the live footage to the control center on ground. This is the first time we use this technology, and also to bring you the live streaming of the first flight of AG600. This is the first time we use this technology to bring you the live footage. And we think this also laid a solid foundation for the following first flight of other flights. AG600, this time at the flight height of 3,000 kilometers. So we have achieved all different kinds of performance testing. The result of the maiden flights are really desirable, and we keep the safe distance between the escort flight and AG600. We are now finding the best position and the best timing for landing. The weather not bring a big impact to AG600, although the wind was quite strong. But after we took off, and what we felt on plane is everything really good. The visibility is perfect. It's create a very enabling environment for us to take in the live picture of AG600. You can see the video is very clear. Right now, the distance between the accompanying flight and AG600 is around 1,180 meters. This is the emitter we took from the equipment on the escort air flight, so we can see the AG600 very clearly just by our eyes. We can see it very clearly because by doing so, the two captains on the company flight, they can see it very clearly, the outlook of AG600. It also helped them to monitor if anything changed on the outside of AG600. But we also need to keep a very safe distance because we want to observe the AG600 by naked eyes. The shortest distance, the minimum distance between our two flights sometimes is only 500. So we need to make sure everything is very safe. The captains on the both flights, they have very, very good relations, and they actually tested many times before the maiden flight. So this is a very, very good cooperation between the two flights, and they know how to make the safe distance between the two flights while monitoring the performance in full aspects of AG600. AG600 right now is making a right side slip. We are around 2,000 kilometers above the ground. AG600 is flying stably. We are back to the scheduled flight zones. The zone this time we selected is Zhuhai Jinwan Airport. It's around 3,000 kilometers of flight altitude. So at this height, the AG600 are making all different movements. So that's including the moving up and down, move to the left and the right hand side. So the AG600 make the change in left angles change and right angle change to make left side slip and right side slip in order to test all different kinds of indicators, performance functions, whether all these reach our designed purpose. And before landing, we'll also make a simulation of landing. So we maintain the AG600 at a certain height and keeping a certain speed. So we simulate the landing scene. You are now watching the live footage of AG600 took by the cameras on the accompanying flight Y20. We are now heading to the Zhuhai airport, and we will also conduct a simulation of landing. So the simulation is that we're heading to the runway, but we're not landed. We just do a simulation and then we fly up again. So this is for the testing. And you can see the wings span is ready for landing. We can imagine the captains actually right now is also prepared for landing. I think the flight crew, they're also in a very good physical conditions. Yes, of course, they have rich experience. And also the condition of AG600 is also quite good. So I think the whole team is really relaxed. This is the footage we're taking from inside of AG600. On the left-hand side is Captain Zhao Sheng. On the right-hand side is co-pilot Chen Ming. And the mechanician Wei Peng is sit at the back. And we have another crew member, is the observer, is sit inside of cabin. So the observer actually is reading all the data, the live data. So data you can collect at the back of the cabin, and also we will send the data in a timely fashion to the ground control center. So we are right now doing the preparation for landing, but that's for a simulation. The engine is operating in a very steady speed, and the wings are folded for landing and also heading to the runway. So during the flight, I think the whole construction is very simple, no big change. And also we look at the systems. Right now, the system not really have the abnormal data or signal captured. I think till now we can see everything going well, is in line with our design purpose. And this is flight not for testing purpose. Actually, in the end, we want to use this flight for practical usage. And right now we're changing the angles heading to the runway, and you can see the boat on the sea. The weather today is really good. We can see the sun, and the temperature right now is 21 degrees Celsius. It's a very nice day. Our flight the ideal situation is want to select the perfect day with perfect temperature, with perfect weather. But our design purpose is also like make our AG600 can fly in different weather conditions. We just see a boat. Actually, the Jinwan airport is at the coastline, very near the sea. And we're heading, target the runway, and it's ready for landing. It's heading to, approaching to the runway. You can see angle is targeting the runway, very smoothly landing, very stable approaching to the runway. So keep the flight, aircraft flight. Okay, we see it's landed, very perfect landing. Very, very stable landing. You can see at the middle of the runway, very good landing, very smooth, very stable. We can see that it meet all our targeted designed goals and the performance. We have a perfect functioned amphibious aircraft. And still will taxing a while. And the speed is slowed down. I think the design team, the manufacturing team, they spent 8 years for this day. This day is a big day for AG600 and also the big day for the whole teams. We can see the working teams here are very excited, and someone also quite calm. They spent 8 years.
It's a natural result of their years of effort. So everyone is very confident of a good result. 8 years. So it's like watching your baby grow up, learning how to walk like this. So how do you feel? Actually, we are observing the landing on a vehicle. Actually, I was very excited to see the smooth landing. And for the maiden flight, altogether, I'm very calm because it's a sure result of efforts. There will be no surprises and no emergencies. So for today's successful maiden flight, we can see that the people on the scene are very excited. They are cheering and they are waving the flags, and we can feel the pride of being a Chinese. The successful maiden flight marks a new stage for AG600. It means for firefighting and ocean rescue, we are having better capabilities. So AG600 is for forest firefighting and ocean rescue and many other tasks. It's also a needed equipment for our search and rescue system. We also experienced leapfrog development in our search and rescue system. Next year, it will have the first over-water maiden flight. People have been giving a lot of attention to AG600, especially the netizens. I hope that all of you could continue with your attention on AG600, and I believe that with your continued attention, our work will also be going forward smoothly. And AG600 can enter the civil aviation market. The amphibious aircraft looks like a ship and a plane. Yeah, at the lower part, it is a hull. Yeah, we call it a hull in our industry. We developed the hull through our hydraulic power lab after 3 years of efforts. That is to develop high resistance to sea waves. And during production, we also spent a lot of time and efforts to develop the best shape of the hull. Okay, a look at other data. For domestically produced engines, and the large maximum takeoff weight is 53,500 kilograms. It can take off on land and over water, and it could also scoop water to fight fires in forests And within 20 seconds, it can scoop 12 tons of water. What does it mean by 12 tons of water? For example, it equals to 24,000 bottles of mineral water. So it can cover an area of more than 4,000 square meters. Yeah, for small forest fire scenes or early stage forest fires, it can help put out fires. Yeah, it can resist 2 meters of sea wave and can rescue 50 people. Yeah, 2-meter wave resistance. Actually, we can imagine in South China Sea, every year the average wave measures more than 2 meters. I mean, over 1/4 waves are over 2 meters, but 75% of waves is below 2 meters. So it could carry out the rescue missions perfectly. And today, at 9:30 of December 24th, the airplane took off successfully. And actually, I think I can see the manufacturing capacity of China. Okay, there is a special ceremony here. So it has come back. The ceremony should, the Watergate ceremony should be enjoyed by our designers and all the staff workers. So it means washing the dust for the aircraft. So AG600 is nearing the reviewing stand. The captain and his team will pay tribute to all the guests at the scene and all the netizens and viewers. He will report the success of this maiden flight. AG600 is also a coordinated endeavor of many universities, research institutes, and over tens of thousands of researchers. And actually, 8 years is not a very long time for aviation professionals. So how long have you been working in this industry? Over 10 years for AG600. During the feasibility stage and later of the research and development. So I'm deeply attached to this aircraft. The aircraft has come to a stop. The Captain Zhao Sheng, co-pilot Chen Ming, mechanician Wei Peng, and the observer Song Kangning will open the door of the cabin. We can already hear the cheers on the scene. 1 hour and 335 minutes of maiden flight. Yeah, so actually the duration is counted starting from the operation of engines. For the crew team, they come from our research academy, and Mr. Zhao Sheng, Chen Ming, Wei Peng, and Song Kangning make up the crew team. All of them are very experienced. So could you talk about their experience? C919, Y8, A2J21. They have flown different types of aircrafts. And they all have civil aviation certificates and commercial airplane certificates. For Wei Peng, he has over 2,600 hours of flights, and he is the youngest. The crew team is to open the cabin door. So at 9:30 today, Zhao Sheng, Chen Ming, Wei Peng, Song Kangning, their crew team fly the AG600 aircraft, and they had stable flight for 64 minutes at a height of 3,000 meters. We can see that the cabin door is open now. 64 minutes of flight. The first one coming outside of the cabin is Captain Zhao Sheng, co-pilot Chen Ming, and then mechanician Wei Peng and observer Song Kangning. Applause for them at the scene. The crew team has already descended the ramp. Okay, Captain Zhao, congratulations. How do you feel? Yeah, very good performance today with good indicators and our coordination, air-ground coordination, and our coordination with the escort plane. All of them are perfect. I'm very excited too. And I also want to congratulate on the successful maiden flight. I hope that you could get the certificate as early as possible and contribute to our endeavors in the future. Okay. With the successful maiden flight, the 3 large aircrafts, namely AG600, C919, and Y20, have all realized successful flights, and we look forward to a better era. Okay, that's all from the scene.
好的，各位央视新闻的网友，大家好，我们现在正在 AG600 首飞仪式的现场，通过我们的镜头也可以看到我们的 AG600。
Okay, netizens of CCTV, good morning. We are at the scene of the maiden flight ceremony for AG600. We can see that the maiden flight has been successfully completed. It also marks a milestone and a breakthrough in China's aviation industry. Today is a maiden flight on land. Later, it will also have an over water maiden flight.
So through our camera, you can see the flight crew is heading to the main station and report to the senior leadership. AG600 is homegrown, largest amphibious aircraft, and it took off 9:30 from Zhuhai airport and landed successfully at 10:43, and the flight duration is nearly 1 hour. You can see a very big cheerings at the side. The flight crew are heading to the main stage for the final report. Now let's invite the captain to report the maiden flight performance. So Captain Zhao Sheng is making the report. The maiden flight is completed successfully. All the performance and functions are as scheduled. Thank you very much. The amphibious aircraft for fire control and maritime search and rescue is successfully concluded.